On Friday, after visiting with survivors of the Parkland school shooting, Donald Trump was ready for a party. CNN reporter Kevin Liptak tweeted that Trump stopped through a Studio 54-themed disco at his private Mara Lago resort. Partygoers captured photos of Trump at the event that were later posted to Instagram. But he must not have partied too hard, because today he was up bright and early, furiously tweeting away about everything from an attack on President Obama to an attack on Adam Schiff, an attack on Obama, Schiff, and Hillary Clinton at the same time, revisiting his claim that a 400-pound man hacked the election, and musing over how, quote, and this is the president talking, they are laughing their asses off in Moscow. Jennifer, Nayyera, and Malcolm are back with me, and joining us is Natasha Bertrand, staff writer for The Atlantic. And I will note that every time that I have said a cuss word on this show, I have been quoting Donald Trump. And that's true. Let me go to you first on this, Natasha, for just some reporting on this. Donald Trump is up super early this morning. Golf course is closed. Is it raining? Can you give us any insight into why we have spent the entire morning reading tweets from this person?
He clearly feels like he's being backed into a corner, ironically, by his own advisors, right? So you have H.R. McMaster, who said at the Munich Security Conference that there is incontrovertible evidence now that Russia did, in fact, interfere in the elections. And, of course, Donald Trump does not like to be outshone. He is now saying that H.R. McMaster forgot to say that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign team and Russia. Of course, Trump is trying again to make this all about himself, when in fact the real story here is that the FBI has determined that Russia interfered in the election using a very sophisticated operation that spanned years and spent millions of dollars on that. And we have not seen the president come out and condemn that. Yet again, the only people that he's tweeting about are Adam Schiff, Obama, H.R. McMaster. We do not see him criticizing Vladimir Putin. And of course, that's been a pattern since well before he even began running for president.
Yeah, not criticizing Vladimir Putin and not implementing the sanctions duly passed by Congress, not faithfully executing the laws, which I think some might call impeachable. Malcolm, Nance, Donald Trump, let's read that tweet again that Natasha just referred to. He tweeted this in one of his, I don't know, how many times he tweeted this morning. General McMaster forgot to say that the results of the 2016 election were not impacted or changed by the Russians, and that the only collusion was between Russia and Crooked H, the DNC and the Dems. Remember the dirty dossier uranium, and then he rolls out all his conspiracy theories. Did McMaster forget to say that, or is that just not true?
Well, McMaster didn't forget to say that. McMaster forgot to read the cue card that the White House handed to him that he was supposed to read whenever he made statements. Let me tell you something about General McMaster, a man who I used to have a lot of respect for. He's one of these guys, an American hero. He wrote a book literally about military leadership standing up to presidents who were abusing power. And now he's an enabler of the White House. He went to the Munich Security Conference and he made that statement because he was amongst his peers, people he knew that he could speak to intelligently that would understand U.S. policy as it existed at the level of the National Security Advisor. But once it got back to the White House, well, now it's in the political circus, and General McMaster may, in fact, be the next casualty for not playing Donald Trump's shell game of protecting Moscow. And
to that very point, because when he's not in the orbit under the sort of direct sway of the White House, like as you just said, Malcolm, when he's in front of his peers, he does tell the truth. Here is McMaster yesterday talking about those indictments of 13 Russians in a scheme to impact our election.
We would love to have a cyber dialogue when Russia is sincere about curtailing its sophisticated form of espionage. I think that day will be coming because we're becoming more and more adept at tracing the origins of this espionage and subversion. And as you can see with the FBI indictment, the evidence is now really incontrovertible and available in the public domain, whereas in the past, it was difficult to attribute.
Jennifer, Rubin, what do you make of H.R. McMaster? How long do you think it will be before Donald Trump essentially forces him to walk that back, his seeming belief that indeed what happened, that Russia did interfere in our election and that it was espionage?
I don't think he'll force him to walk it back. I think Donald Trump will do what he usually does, which is harass him via conversation, harass him via Twitter, try to make his life miserable, try to belittle him the way he does everyone who fails to cross him. But I do think it's significant that that did, I think, contribute to this spasm that the president is having. H.R. McMaster saying in public, all of the intelligence chiefs last week saying in public, you cannot dispute this, Russia weighed in. And oh, by the way, it's incontrovertible, they weighed in on Donald Trump's behalf. Yes, they may have started with the intent to simply be disruptive and discredit democracy. That's been their game plan. But by 2016, it says it in black and white in that indictment, they began to favor him and to disparage Hillary Clinton. And that is something Donald Trump is going to have to live with the rest of his life. He did not win this election on his own. He won it with the help of the enemy of the United States, Russia.
And Nayyera, obviously that is incredibly triggering for him. He can't take it, quite honestly. Kyle Griffin, who's a great producer over at The Last Word, and something I retweet frequently because he does have some great content in those tweets. He tweeted on Saturday, these two comparative tweets from Donald Trump. Tweet number 1 on Saturday, Trump saying, funny how the fake news media doesn't want to say that the Russian group was formed in 2014. This is the group in the indictment, long before my run for president. Maybe they knew I was going to run even though I didn't know. September 2014, Donald Trump tweet. I wonder if I run for all caps president, will the haters and losers vote for me knowing that I will, all caps, make America great again? I say they will. So, Nayyera, he even knew what his slogan was going to be.
There's a tweet for everything, Donald Trump. And actually, in fact, let's not forget, he's also the person who at the podium said that, oh, yeah, go hack Hillary's emails. And so it seems like he does have an understanding of what the Russians are capable and willing to do, to the point that when in the White House, well past the campaign, he was giving access to the Russian ambassador, giving direct access to Russian media that he was not giving to even the United States media. There is one group and one entity that Donald Trump will not attack, and that is the Russian hierarchy. It is very clear that he feels some obligation, whether it's financial for all of the bailouts he's gotten from Russian oligarchs when he was in real estate, and possibly for feels obligated for the help that they gave him in the campaign. You have 3 people tied to the Donald Trump campaign who have now turned state's evidence and are working with the Mueller investigation, which we know is ongoing. So claims that there is no collusion and no direct finger pointing at Donald Trump is too soon for us to make that determination, and that is essentially why you're seeing Donald Trump go into a tailspin on Twitter.
Yeah, and to that very point, Natasha, you've already had, in addition to the unnamed 3 Trump campaign people with Trump campaign emails who had contact with this Russian entity that was attempting to interfere in the election. We don't know who they are, whether they knew who they were talking to. But in addition to that, people very high up in the Trump campaign have already had some contact with Mueller. You've got the former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, who just got new bank fraud allegations thrown on top of him, which is going to probably make him quite cooperative at some point. You've got top Trump campaign advisor close to a plea deal, meaning Rick Gates, who is a top Trump campaign advisor. CNN reporting he's close to a plea deal. Mueller has interviewed Trump legal team's former spokesperson, Mark Corallo. The former spokesperson for Donald Trump's legal team spoke with special counsel Bob Mueller earlier this week for more than 2 hours, according to the Daily Beast. And this is even before you get to Richard Pinedo, who is the American who was indicted along with those Russians. So this is getting closer and closer and closer to the Trump inner circle. Are the White House staff getting more and more worried about that, or is this just Donald Trump freaking out about it alone?
It may just be Donald Trump freaking out about it alone, but his staff has to be freaking out about his freak out, right? Because everything that he tweets can be used as evidence against him. I mean, Mueller probably is going to take a big interest in what he says, especially as it relates to wanting the FBI to essentially end the Russia investigation so that it can spend more time focusing on, you know, like the shooting in Parkland that happened, which of course is nonsensical. But the big thing that we have to focus on, I think, is that Mueller issued this indictment on Friday to kind of lay the legal groundwork for the fact that this Russian interference was, in fact, a crime. A crime occurred And the fact that he did not implicate any Americans in that crime yet does not mean that he won't in the future. But it was really important for him to lay this legal groundwork so that when he does come around to perhaps indicting Americans, there is a precedent already in place for the fact that this was a crime that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was one American, just with a slight correction there, that Richard Pinedo is an American. But what he did, to your point, was not the collusion bit. He supplied fake identities to basically allow identity theft to be a part of the crime. You guys, a great panel. Thank you all. Natasha Bertrand, Jennifer, Nayyera, and Malcolm will be back with us later in the show. And up next, the truth.